Alrighty, we're gonna move on to natural selection. So cockroaches are pretty gross, and they're also very, very adaptable organisms. They can live anywhere, eat anything, and survive even in the harshest environments. So cockroaches have been able to successfully adapt to multiple habitats because they can. So A, take over other animals' niches or niches. Jobs. So a niche is a job, or a niche is a job. There's two ways of pronouncing that. Do you see cockroaches ever taking over the job of a bird or the job of, I don't know, a lizard? No, that does not make sense. Cockroaches do not take over other animals' jobs at all. They are just scrumming around in their own filth. They do not take over jobs. Next one, live in a place where there is nothing else that is alive. Well, this would not make sense. If nothing else is alive, that means they do not have a lot of food, and they would probably die, even though they are cockroaches and they are hardy. If there is nothing else that is alive, they would probably die eventually. And also, this is not very feasible. There's not a lot of places where there aren't any living organisms, so it's not B. Adapt to different places and different food sources. This one sounds about right. If they can adapt to living in different places and they can adapt to having different sources of food, they're more than likely to survive. Let's check this last one just to make sure that that is our answer. Hybridize, which means basically breed with other types of insects. So this means an insect or a cockroach is like crossing over with a grasshopper, or a cockroach is breeding with, I don't know, a flea. You never see that happen. Hybridization, or breeding between different species, is not a natural occurrence. It does not really happen. So my answer is C. Cockroaches are able to survive because they can adapt to the different places and the different food sources. Next one, this pretty picture of a hummingbird. They're saying that the beak is an adaptation. So the beak is right here. It is an adaptation so that the hummingbird can avoid being eaten. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never seen a hummingbird kind of like use its beak to fly away and run away. So I'm going to say that that's probably not true. I can also see in this picture that there is a flower right here. There's a very pretty flower. So this is telling me that maybe it's something to do with food. Probably, maybe. All right, let's see. Second one, fight off other birds. I've never seen a hummingbird use its beak as a sword. And if they did, that's probably not the main reason. Birds don't just have sword beaks for no reason, you know? I'm going to say it's not B. Avoid food competition. This one has food in it. I'm going to keep it there just for now. And then the last one is so that hummingbirds can have time to eat. This one does not make sense. It does say eat, but like, what does time have to do anything with it? Like, the beak is like, hey, I'm here, you need to eat, like, reminder. No, that doesn't make any sense. So my answer is C, avoid food competition. Because hummingbirds have this very specialized beak, they can access very specialized food that other organisms can't. Therefore, they avoid the competition of food resources. All right, on to number 11. For natural selection to happen, there has to be competition, limited resources, and so natural selection is the survival of the fittest, those that are able to survive, and reproduce. Produce. There we go. Alrighty, so for this to happen, there has to be competition because some organisms have to be able to survive and reproduce more than others. There has to be limited resources because some organisms have to be able to get the apple that the other one can't. There has to be some kind of competition of housing, competition of water, competition of food, because or else how will we know which one is the fittest to survive and reproduce? The last thing we need is somewhere here. So let's see, a static or not changing environment. So static means not changing. right here. If we have a not changing environment, then all of the organisms would be happy where they are. They would never have any pressures to survive or reproduce more. So this would not promote natural selection because all the organisms would be happy. Unlimited resources. Well, I can immediately say that this one's wrong because right here it says that you have to have limited resources to create this competition. If you had unlimited resources, you would have all of the water in the world, all of the food, all of the housing, so there wouldn't be a need for organisms to survive and reproduce differently. Inheritable variations. This one sounds very promising. I'm going to put a little M for maybe here and move on to this next one. Short lifespans. Lifespans don't really have anything to do with natural selection. Organisms that survive a few days versus years and years and years still have to survive and reproduce either way. So lifespans don't have anything to do with natural selection. So my answer is C. For natural selection to happen, there has to be inheritable variations. And that is because you have to be able to pass down the traits that are helping you survive and reproduce to your future generations. So that way you help your population. So inheritable variations, this one's really, really important. It's one of the most important ones for natural selection. And last one for natural selection, what is, when a trait is beneficial to a population, it gets passed on to the offspring. Of course, we just said it gets passed on to the babies when things are good. Which one is likely to increase? So I'm going to look at B first. The number of genes in one organism. If a trait is beneficial, do the number of genes in one organism change? And how would one organism even make a difference to the population? When we talk about natural selection and evolution, everything has to be based on populations, not just one thing. One thing cannot make a difference, it has to be a whole. So all of my answers that say something about one organism and their genes would not matter, therefore they are not my answers. So we're left with A and D. D says the number of genes in a few organisms. Again, a few organisms would not matter. For natural selection and evolution to happen, it has to be in a whole population. And the number of genes of something would never change unless there is a mutation. And if the number of genes changes, that's typically not very good for you. You would probably die or have a very, very bad mutation. So that leaves us with A, the frequency or how often the genes show up in a population. And this checks all the boxes for how things get passed down, beneficial traits get passed down. And that's it for natural selection.